webinar in Indonesia for you on Zoom and also everyone participating on YouTube. Before we start, I'd like to briefly raise a few technical issues about the webinar. Perhaps you've attended one of our seminars and this is familiar to you, but let me just reiterate that first of all, this webinar is recorded, and by joining, you give permission to be included in the recording, which will be uploaded later for public viewing on social media and YouTube. During Q&A, those on Zoom may questions in two ways. First, you can write your question in the Q&A box. You can find the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, or you can use the raise hand feature. We will unmute you, but please be brief so that we can have as many people as possible to post questions. Those on YouTube, you may also participate in the discussion by writing your comments in the comment box, your question or comments in the comment box on YouTube, and we'll transfer it to the Zoom Q&A box here in the forum. The event is a collaboration of FKP and the Indonesian Embassy in Namibia. The FKP Secretariat received support from the Australian Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. Thank you. As I mentioned earlier, today's host is the Indonesian Embassy in Namibia. And we have Mr. Ari Hadiman, who is the head of Information and Socio-Cultural Affairs at the Embassy of the Republic of Indonesia in Windhoek, Namibia. Pak Ari, the Zoom room is yours.
Thank you so much. Good morning to all key speakers in Namibia and good afternoon to all participants in Indonesia. Once again, I welcome you to the Forum of Kajian Pembangunan or Development Studies Forum. The topic for today is Indonesia-Namibia diplomatic relations towards a dynamic economic partnership. My name is Ari Hadiman, and today I will serve as a moderator for this meeting. And for the first part of these sessions, we will hear some opening remarks from the Ambassador of the Republic of Indonesia, His Excellency Wisnu Edi Pratikno. His Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Pak Ari. Director of Ceremonies, guest speakers, Mr. Jason Kasuto, Mr. Anthony Dawela Ulumuyiwa, Mr. Kons Karamata, distinguished official from the Ministry of International Relations and Cooperation, representative from the Economic Association of Namibia, distinguished invited guests, gentlemen, a very good morning. To the Forum Kajian Pembangunan, who joined in organizing this morning webinar at the Embassy of Indonesia in Windhoek, Namibia. I will express my gratitude and appreciations to our invited guests and speakers for availing time to be with us on this occasion and share their views and knowledge on the ways strengthening Indonesia-Namibia relations with an emphasis on economic cooperation. I would like also to thank all the audience for the participating in this webinar. I am sure we will agree that the COVID-19 pandemic is a challenge for all of us and we continue to grapple with. The pandemic has completely changed the way we do things, shaped a new normal all over the world. And as such, speakers and guests all over the world can join us hybridly, virtually, and in person just like today. As mentioned in the abstracts, the webinar titled 30 Years of Indonesia-Namibia Diplomatic Relations Toward a Dynamic Economic Partnerships aims to discuss ways to strengthen Indonesia-Namibia economic relations. On the 13th of May 2021, just a few days from now, marked the 30th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between both countries. Indonesia, one of the first countries to acknowledge Namibia independence, and then become one of the few diplomatic representations to Namibia in 1991. I highly hope that one day Namibia will open an embassy in Jakarta. Over the 3 decades, the two countries have built a partnership and friendship founded on shared interests, mutual respect, and people-to-people ties. The bilateral relations are highlighted by increasing economic cooperation, including trade, investment, tourism, agriculture, and technical cooperations. In 2018, both heads of state agreed and emphasized the need for the two countries to deepen their relation in trade, investment, and to create opportunities for shared prosperity. At this moment, when the world faces common challenges, namely the pandemic COVID-19, it is particularly important to revisit the original aspirations of establishing diplomatic relations 30 years ago and carry forward the spirit of friendship, unity, and cooperation. There is an urgent need to identify the right path to promote understanding around common interests, which should be seen as an intellectual challenge to enhance two countries' relations in the coming decades. Namibia is a country with a huge development potential, and Indonesia is willing to push our bilateral relations to a new stage by furthering strengthening cooperation with Namibia in infrastructure construction, agriculture, industrial and services, energy, and other sectors that help to accelerate the process of industrializations and agricultural modernization. The aim of this webinar become crucial in bringing together relevant private and public stakeholders from Indonesia and Namibia to discuss measures and strategies that are aimed at strengthening Indonesia-Namibia economic relations and to create shared prosperity for all our people. It is my wish that the friendship and cooperation between Indonesia and Namibia be ever more strengthened for the years to come. I look forward to fruitful discussion on possible solutions, and I thank you for your kind attention and profoundly welcome you to this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Excellency, for the warm opening remarks. And we also expect that this discussion will bring concrete actions, concrete program to make the friendship will be ever more strengthened. And move on to the next part of this discussions. We will hear views and knowledge from 3 speakers. And before we begin, allow me to share some guidelines for this discussion session. The discussion session will consist of 2 parts. The first part, we will hear the knowledge, the presentations from the speakers. We will allocate 15 minutes time for the speakers to present his view, for sharing the knowledge and expertise. And after all the speakers present all the informations, we will open the discussion or questions and answer session. Our first speaker for this session is Dr. Sultan Syahrir. He is a career diplomat, joining the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia since 2009. Dr. Sultan diplomatic rank is first secretary, and currently he is in charge of economic department at the Embassy of the Republic of Indonesia in Windhoek. His previous assignment was Charge d'Affaires at the Embassy of Indonesia in Sana'a, Republic of Yemen, and attaché at the Embassy of Indonesia in Santiago. As a professional diplomat, he held various experiences and also positions in the headquarters, ranging from the Center for Education and Training, the Center for Policy Analysis and Development on America and European regions, and also Directorate of Trade, Industry, Investment, and Intellectual Property Rights. Dr. Sultan, with his distinguished background as economic researcher, has produced numerous articles and research papers, which published in international and national journals, book chapters, local newspapers, and others. Today, Dr. Sultan will present his overview on the Indonesia and Namibia bilateral relations. Dr. Sultan, without further delay, we welcome you for this meeting, and please, you may start your presentation.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Ari. A very good morning in Namibia, and a very good afternoon to all audience in Indonesia. In this occasion, let me kindly to share with you just a brief presentation about first introducing Namibia, second followed by a brief overview about the Indonesia and Namibia diplomatic relations. Without further ado, let's start from the first slide. Next slide. Next. Next. Yes. First of all, I would like to highlight a little bit to introduce where is Namibia. Namibia is the African country which is located in southwest of Africa. It is basically neighbored countries with Angola, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Botswana, and of course South Africa. And it is located in the Atlantic Ocean. So nowadays, for your kind information, if you want to travel to Namibia from Indonesia, after the COVID pandemic, there is one flight, for example, Ethiopia Airlines, where you can fly from Jakarta, and then you go to Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. You transit there for some time, and then you can fly directly to Namibia using the Ethiopia Airlines. Of course, before the pandemic, there are others airlines as well. For example, like the Qatar Airways that fly to Doha and then to Namibia, or you can fly as well, for example, through Johannesburg, and then from Johannesburg in South Africa to Windhoek, Namibia. So basically, these are the a brief overview how you can travel through the using the air flight, particularly after the pandemic COVID condition. Next slide. With regards to the country profile, so basically Namibia consists of around I would say 2.5 million people, and it is a small open economy with a GDP per capita around $6,000 US. And of course, the economic growth last year, it posted a minus economic growth. Particularly, as we know, the tourism sector was actually hit hard last year. So I think that almost all countries experience economic contraction in last year. Next slide. So these are the overview that Namibia can become one of the potential alternatives for logistics hub for the transport of goods and as well it can become the alternative logistics to the landlocked countries, to the neighboring countries, for example, such as the Zimbabwe, Botswana, Democratic Republic of Congo, Malawi, and Zambia. And as well, Namibia is part of SACU. For your kind information, SACU is Southern African Customs Union. It consists of 5 countries: South Africa, as well Botswana, Lesotho, Namibia, and Eswatini. Previously, it is called as Swaziland. And as well, Namibia is also part of Southern African Development Community, which consists of 16 countries with a population of around more than 365 million people. And as well, Namibia is classified as a upper middle income country according to the World Bank. Next slide. So this is just an overview that Namibia has a Walvis Bay Corridor Group. It is a network of infrastructures connecting all, starting from roads, ships, to the neighboring countries. And there are several corridors connecting particularly to the landlocked countries in the Southern African region. Next slide. So next, I would like to highlight a bit about the Indonesia-Namibia diplomatic relations. So it is established back in 1991. So as previously Ambassador Wisnu mentioned, that this year is the 30 years of Indonesia-Namibia friendships. So, and as well for the Namibian government, so far there is no yet embassy in Indonesia. It is currently held from the embassy based in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. And over the years, the political relations between Indonesia and Namibia is very cordial, very warm. Indonesia has always supported Namibia's struggle for independence, which they got it in 1990. And both countries, states have paid official, the head of state have paid official visits. For example, the founding president, Dr. Sam Nujoma, visited to Indonesia in 1997 and 2002. And meanwhile, President Suharto came to Namibia in 1997. And the most recent, last 2018, President H. Genggob paid a state visit to Indonesia, met with President Jokowi in 2018. So this shows that the relationship between both countries are cordial over the years. Next slide. These are some of the list of the MOUs that are signed between both countries. For example, we have of the bilateral cooperation, which was signed in 2009. This agreement become the umbrella for all aspects of cooperation, starting from political and security cooperation, economic cooperation, as well socio-cultural cooperation is discussed in this meeting, so-called Joint Commission for Cooperation. And as well, there are other MOU, for example, cooperation among the National Police Force, and as well there are economic and technical cooperation between the both states, and there are also MOU for mineral resources and energy. Next slide. And other MOUs, for example, among the Chamber of Commerce of both countries, there are as well fisheries cooperation and the news agencies MOU, and last but not least, there are also MOUs, for example, among the universities. For this case, Universitas Gadjah Mada and the University of Namibia, which was signed in 2017. 2017 was renewed. Previously was back in 2011. As well, the first Joint Commission meeting was conducted in Jakarta back in 2009. And there are several agreements that are signed in that period. So this meeting, we can say it is a milestone meeting for both countries' bilateral relations. Next slide. Highlights of the 30 years of Indonesia-Namibia relations since 1991. Until today, 2019. I will not elaborate this in detail. We can move to the next slide. Now, I'm here about the economic relations between Indonesia and Namibia. So basically, over the last 20 years, since 2000 until 2020, we can see that the bilateral trade relation is fluctuating. For example, in 2015, it was 9.2 million US dollar, the bilateral trade relations. But in 2020, it decreased to 4.7 million US dollar. So these are the just a brief overview how it looked like the trade relations over the last 20 years between the both countries. Next slide. And next slide. So here just for the main Indonesian exports in 2019, before the COVID pandemic. So the number one that Indonesia export is fish fillets, frozen tunas, which reach $830,000. And of course, there are many other products that Indonesia export to Namibia. For example, like furnitures, food products like noodles, as well some candies, as well. There are also coconut oil, for example, and these are and as well the wheels, car vehicle wheels. We do export here as well to Namibia. And meanwhile, the Indonesian import from Namibia, next slide, there are two, basically, the main products. Number one is the zinc. Zinc, whether it is alloyed or not alloyed, it reached to $7 million last year, and followed by some dairy products, milk and cream. And maybe some of you do not know that Indonesia actually import dates, or so-called kurma, buah kurma, from Namibia. We already met with the the Indonesian importer. They mentioned that we do import kurma, or we do import dates in Namibia during the time when in the northern, in the Middle East countries, they do not harvest. They bring the dates from the Namibia. So in other words, Namibia become the alternative source of kurma, or so-called dates for Indonesia. Next slide. So post-pandemic, of course, the trade relations has declined into 2020. These are the list of the products. There's number one, yes, there are some machinery products, for example, like hand tractors that we do export, and of course fish as well, and there are others, for example, footwears, and some textile that we do export to Namibia. Next slide. So meanwhile, the same like the previous year, there are two main products, zinc and fruit and the dates that Indonesia import from. Next slide. So basically, within the African region, so far there is only a free trade agreement which is signed, which is Indonesia with Mozambique, the preferential trade agreement, which was signed back in 2019. But also Indonesia is pursuing for other PTA negotiations, for example, with Tunisia, Morocco, and Mauritius, and as well with the Southern African region, for this case with SACU, Southern African Customs Union. The government of Indonesia has proposed this since 2017, and we still do follow up for this. So in other words, for your kind information, we have, apart from Indonesia, India is also actually pursuing for PTA with SACU. Next slide. So here we did some simulation, a partial equilibrium simulation, that suppose that Indonesia and Namibia do a free trade agreement, it will actually boost a trade volume, let's say not much, around 200,000 US dollar, according to the calculation. So it will open, let's say, for example, for Indonesian products to Namibia, furnitures and some food products, for example, like noodles, footwears, and some part and accessories of vehicles to the Namibian market. Meanwhile, for the Namibian products, for example, such as the dairy products, milk and cream, and as well dates, we'll be able to further penetrate the Indonesian market. These are some basic. Suppose that both countries move totally the tariff of the products. Next slide. These are the product mapping. So basically, I would like to highlight more on Namibia. Namibia has an abundance of mining resources, and they have, for example, uranium. They have fuel wood. Here we're referring to charcoal, for example, and wood chips. And as well, Namibia has a lot of what you call the gemstones, precious stones. Namibia also has a lot of fish. They produce a significant number of fish, and zinc, of course, and diamonds. These are the products that Namibia has. Meanwhile, Indonesia, we do export palm oil products, natural rubber for wheels, tin, for example, natural gas, spices, cocoa. These are the some of the examples that Indonesia has strong competitiveness in. Next slide. Next, I would like to highlight a bit about the economic promotion that the embassy has done over the years. For example, we do participate in Ongwediva Annual Trade Fair, which is a city located in the northern part of Namibia, relatively close to Angola. And as well, Windhoek Industrial Agricultural Show. We do conduct, for example, business forum, business matching. As well, we attend, for example, like event in Swakopmund for International Trade Expo. There are also Erongo Business and Tourism Expo. And of course, one of the prominent expo here, the Namibia Tourism Expo, which is held every year. Last year, it was held in November. And as well, next slide. For these are the photos that we do participate and we do attend the fairs in Namibia. Next slide. These are some of the Indonesian products that have entered into Namibia. For example, like wheels, they are so-called the brand Acelera and Forseum. And also there are furnitures that are exported to Namibia, handicraft as well. And there are Indonesian food products, candies, as well the instant noodles. Next slide. There are other, for example, the coconut oil that we do export to Namibia. These are the photos that we captured basically from their respective shops in Namibia. Next slide. Here, I would like to highlight a bit about the socio-cultural cooperation. Next slide. As I mentioned earlier, that Indonesia and Namibia has MOUs between higher education. For example, Universitas Gadjah Mada with the University of Namibia. And there are also other MOUs that are signed between universities. But one of the prominent is, and the most active, is this one, the cooperation between UGM and the UNAM, University of Namibia. And also Indonesia, every year we do offer scholarships. We so-called the Developing Countries Partnership or KN-based scholarship, and as well Dharma Siswa scholarship to the Namibian students. And so far, according to our record, there are at least 7 Namibians that took part to take bachelor and master degree program, and as well non-degree program in some of the Indonesian universities. So these are the photos that some of the Namibian students that attended the higher education in Indonesia. Next slide. So here I would like to conclude that it is important to further strengthen and explore economic opportunities to enhance the economic relation between both countries. The priority is clear here that we need to, the emphasis is on economic diplomacy. Basically, we want to enhance TTI, trade, tourism, and investment. Second, we want to pursue the Indonesia-Saku PTA to further boost the trade relations. And as well, of course, we cannot forget to further strengthen the socio-cultural cooperation to enhance people-to-people contact, because this is still arguably relatively few. And last but not least, the second of the Indonesia-Namibia Joint Commission can be conducted to further discuss about all aspects of cooperation within this framework of meeting. I think that's my brief presentation. Thank you very much. Selamat sore waktu Indonesia.
Thank you, Dr. Sultan, for sharing with us about the Indonesia-Namibia bilateral relations. From your presentation, we learned a lot about the potential of free trade between both countries, as well as various activities and programs conducted by the Embassy of Indonesia in Windhoek to promote economic cooperations and socio-cultural cooperations. Participants, distinguished speakers. The next speaker, we have Mr. Jason Kasuto. We'll read a brief curriculum vitae of Mr. Jason. He is a founder and managing partner of Monasa Advisory and Associates, which specializing in research and advisory services. Mr. Jason has extensive experience on advising public and private sector, such as the government institution of pension and fund and Old Mutual Foundation. With his strong background on socio-economic development in 2019, Mr. Jason was appointed by the President of the Republic of Namibia as a member of the high-level panel on the Namibian economy. We are delighted to have Mr. Jason in our discussion today. Mr. Jason will share his view on Namibia economic outlook. Mr. Jason, as mentioned earlier, you have 15 minutes to share your views. Please, you may begin the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Let me share the screen. I don't think it is here.
On the bottom of the screen.
There it is. Let me do the following. Video. It's not going to do this. Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator, and greetings to the Ambassador of Indonesia. Thank you for the wonderful presentation by Dr. Sultan. Mine really would be today to be able to share with you some of the key highlights in terms of the economic outlook of the country and more essentially what pertains to the theme of today. As previously introduced, my name is Jason Kasuto. Today I'm speaking to you here as the chairperson of the Economic Association of Namibia. I would want to be as brief as possible, but to the point with the most pertinent points. Just a quick overview of today's presentation that I'll give you. The Namibia fact sheet, but I think Dr. Sultan really touched on most of that, so I'll probably skip that. That was just for the audience that would like to get to understand just the quick facts about Namibia. I'll then provide an economic outlook as it relates to GDP and GDP projections and various other factors on a few indicators. Then the investment climate, which I think would be a very important one to look at if we're talking about economic diplomacy relations between Namibia and Indonesia. Then some of government's policy priority sectors, the investment opportunity sectors that exist currently, and that will then conclude my presentation for discussion. Next slide. In terms of my next slide, I think this has mostly been touched on already by Dr. Sultan. I won't want to waste too much time to jump into that. I'll jump straight to the next one. This was just a brief introduction about a few facts. Now, Namibia comprises obviously of the composition of our economy is made up of primary, secondary, and tertiary sectors. Very important to note there is that the primary sector comes in at 19.1% or makes up 19.1% of our GDP. 16.5% comes from the secondary industries, and about 57, or you can say 58%, comes from the tertiary industries. I think what's important to note here is that the structure of the economy has remained fairly the same since independence in 1990. And I think sometimes that poses the challenges in terms of not only per industry contribution to GDP, but also the structure of the economy in order to allow for investments in diversified sectors. So really our primary sectors are agriculture, forestry, and fishing, as well as mining and quarry. Our secondary sector, which contributes 16% to the GDP, comprises of manufacturing activities, electricity and water, and construction. The tertiary industry, which has been the biggest contributor for the past over 30 years, comprises of wholesale and retail trade, hotels and restaurants. Obviously, our tourism industry falls very well in there. Amongst others, also the financial and insurance service activities, which is a big contributor to that. And then professional, scientific, and technical services. Also, another subsector there is administrative and support services, which is mostly stimulated by the fiscus, and public administration, defense, education, and health. So those are some of the sectors within the industries across the tertiary sector industry. In the next slide, I just wanted to be able to highlight per activity what the contribution is per activity. And if you'll see there, public administration and defense provides the biggest, it contributes the largest to the GDP at 11.6%. That is followed by manufacturing. And in manufacturing, really, we're talking about meat processing, for example. We're talking about breweries, we're talking about plastics, and so on. So that comes in at about 11%. That is then followed by education. Again, like I said, that is stimulated quite a lot from the fiscus. Then mining and quarry comes in at about 10.1%, just slightly under the education contribution. Then wholesale and retail trade and repairs coming in at 9.6%, and agriculture coming in at 9%. Obviously, agriculture comprising of livestock, fisheries, forestry, crops and horticulture, and so forth. So that's just an outlook in terms of contribution to GDP across the various sectors. I'll just present to you a bit of our performance in terms of GDP per industry. Obviously, you see there, 2020, there was an immensely large contraction. GDP growth posted a negative growth at 7.3%, largely due to the COVID pandemic. We are forecasting that for 2021, we would have a growth at 2.7%, followed by 3.3% by 2022, which showing slightly a steady increase. Although this is still, very much dependent on a number of factors, such as the COVID pandemic and how we're able to roll out the vaccines in order to create stability for some of our sectors to be able to get revived again. If you look at the makeup there, you would see that this growth is largely driven. The growth that we will see from 2021 to 2022 would largely be driven by the primary industries. The primary sector is going to expand by about 5.8% to about 8% contribution. And that's generally around agriculture, forestry, and fishing sectors. That will be driving that growth, as well as mining, particularly the diamond mining sector, which will be driving that growth that you can see there. And then obviously the secondary sectors will also be recording positive growth. And then the tertiary sectors we anticipate with the opening up of the borders and tourism picking up again. So that's just a bit of a slightly positive projection from now till 2022. Just, I do not want to bore you with many figures, but just a bit slightly in terms of our CPI and our inflation rates, you would see there that there was about a 33% dip, and that was from 2019 to 2020, and that was really to provide a cushion in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic. We foresee that we would remain fairly constant or slight increase, but fairly constant at about 3% from 2022 to 2023 in terms of CPI. So that's just some of the key highlights there. I think the next slide is also very important. I had to take this straight from the FNB presentation that they did to the Economic Association of Namibia, which highlighted something quite important for us to note, and that is that government revenues have been on a decline, and of course that is largely due to the COVID pandemic and its impact on various sectors of the economy. We will see a slight increase from 2022, 2023, and 2023 to 2024, but also coupled with that, you would understand that the public debt would have also increased due to quite a number of reasons, where you've got a tight fiscal or very tight fiscal constraints. This I think has spurred government on to be able to bring in interventions that seek more private sector funding or to crowd in more foreign direct investment into Namibia. As you can see, our growth has really, much of the year has been stimulated by the fiscus, and the policy priorities have now really moved towards attracting foreign direct investment in order to augment the efforts at a national level. Just a bit touch on our investment climate. I think right up top there is our good endowment of natural resources. I think Dr. Sultan mentioned the zinc that we export to Indonesia, amongst others, also diamonds, copper, uranium, gold, tin, hydropower, fish, coal, iron ore, and there is suspected deposits of oil. So that exploration has been happening in Namibia for oil deposits. So I think just another key highlight is the stability of the country. We enjoy quite a favorable and stable macroeconomic environment. We do have an independent judicial system. We've got the protection of property rights and contractual rights, good quality physical and ICT infrastructure. I've put there to South Africa, but also to Angola, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Botswana, which are all landlocked countries surrounding Namibia, except for Angola and South Africa. In terms of just a few indexes, in terms of our global rankings, Namibia was rated by the World Economic Forum as the first in Africa, #1 in Africa for quality of road infrastructure. Namibia is the top 5 least corrupt country in Africa. It's the first in Africa in terms of press freedom, and it's amongst the top 6 in sub-Saharan Africa in terms of economic freedom index. In terms of our country's investment readiness, as I've said there, that we before the pandemic, we also had a period of recession or negative growth, largely due to our dependence on a lot of commodities and the international commodity prices being affected, brought us into a situation where the country, I think, really did well in thinking approach to attracting investments. And that saw the establishment of the Namibia Investment and Development Board, whose primary objective is really to be able to facilitate investment, foreign investment into Namibia and make those processes smoother. And that touches on things such as the ease of doing business and being able to attract foreign investment into bankable opportunities in the country. In terms of policy targets, also very recently launched by the head of state, is the Harambee Prosperity Plan 2, which is a set of composite targets that propel policy and policy interventions. I think one of them to highlight is that there are 2 key pillars that I think are important for our discussion today. One is the economic advancement pillar, The other one is the international relations and cooperation pillar, which is amongst the 5 pillars that the president has outlined in the Harambee Prosperity Plan. If you look at the international cooperations pillar, you will see that its main thrust is to enhance economic diplomacy for economic recovery. Therefore, I think, there's this big drive for Namibia to reach out to international community to attract investment that is win-win for both countries. Our skills, we have a 91% literacy rate and various internationally accredited institutions of higher learning, including technology and innovation or science. Just a quick view in terms of the national policy priority sectors, and this is really just a summary or gathered from various national development documents, such as the National Development Plan 5, the Growth at Home Strategy, the Harambee Prosperity Plan, and various others. I have not picked out all of them. I've picked out some just for the purposes of this discussion. So education would have been one of them that I have not listed there, but for the purposes of this discussion, I think we've got the main ones here that relate to potential investment. So it's agriculture, which includes agricultural products and forestry, including biomass, horticulture products, also under agriculture. In terms of infrastructure, we've also got a lot of the electrical or energy, renewable energy. Green hydrogen has now become a hot topic, as highlighted in the Harambee Prosperity Plan. When we talk of real estate there, we're talking about affordable housing, low-cost housing, bulk water supply and sanitation. The other policy priority sector is logistics. I think Dr. Sultan gave a the Walfish Bay Corridor Group's intention and the port of Walfish Bay competing to be amongst the best ports on Africa to become a logistics hub. And then tourism, of course, a very big contributor. Then healthcare, in terms of that policy priority is really healthcare facilities and medicinal product manufacturing. As you may be aware, we import quite a large amount of pharmaceutical products. In reaching the close of our presentation, I will just take you through a few investment opportunity sectors that may be of interest. The first one being really within the energy space, and that is investing in small-scale off-grid infrastructure that provides access to rural and underserved communities. About 49% of our population does not have access to electricity. So, and out of our total population that does have access, only 26.5% of Namibia's total energy is consumed through renewable energy. So that presents quite a big opportunity. Of course, large-scale electrical utilities infrastructure is quite expensive to bring to rural areas. We are a sparsely populated country. That providing an opportunity really for small-scale off-grid solutions. The total investment as calculated by a draft document we worked on with the UNDP measures at about $220 million required for this over the next 10 years. Also remaining within, Namibia has really been blessed by one of the best sun raises in the world. We recently launched the modified single biome model, which allows big off-takers and private and big off-takers to be able to access electricity directly from an independent power producer. So this also provides quite a big opportunity for independent power producers to provide energy to what we call contestable customers. If you look at the market size there, currently contestable customers that have registered with the Electricity Control Board require about 406 megawatts, which are currently available for private sector to engage these contestable customers, largely comprising of our mining sectors and so forth. Let me jump to the next one. Just to highlight there, really something of great importance is the affordable housing. About 30 to 40% of our population in urban areas lives in informal settlements. We do have a housing situation with a backlog of about 300,000 in 2018. When having done a calculation on those afford houses, this calculation was just based on public sector employees who do not have, or who are renting and do not have access to their own homes, measures at an investment requirement of about $3 billion US. If we look at the Harambee Prosperity Plan 2, it has really put through a very good target of saying within that to build about 20,000 housing units countrywide by the end of the HPP2 through partnerships with public and private sector. Also a very important one is agriculture. Namibia is a net importer, about 65% of horticulture produce. So it is really quite a key area in terms of import substitution. Currently, the horticulture vegetable market is 438 million per annum, and the fruit market about 219 million. Largely, the largest share of those imports is really potatoes, and we have an opportunity to be able to actually partner with private sector, I think, in order to be able to actually produce locally. Dr. Sultan spoke about the dates. Namibia produces dates. We've now started to produce grapes, but much needed investment is required amongst these sectors in order to, number one, mitigate import substitution, and then number two, also export to potential markets such as Indonesia. Our next slide is just around the opportunity biomass sector. In terms of Namibia, about 45 million of bush encroached land, basically. And this has resulted in a very much of an unbalanced ecosystem and land degradation in terms of rangeland carrying capacity for livestock. Livestock still, especially beef, remains one of also a big export for Namibia to various niche markets. By improving or by mitigating bush encroachment, we will be able to also increase our carrying capacity. So in terms of that development need, really the bush encroachment was actually declared as a disaster in National Development Plan 4 and National Development Plan 5. If we look at the potential market size there, we've got about 10 tons per hectare of excess bush biomass, which in total equals to in excess of bush biomass of about 450 million tons. And as quite a viable sector for Namibia is that, you know, it's something the bush regrows as it is cut off. So from an environmental perspective, addressing bush encroachment through biomass activities would greatly aid our country, not only in bringing in foreign currency and investment, but also in terms of its employment multipliers. We have seen that with the charcoal sector, we've seen with these sectors dependent on mitigating bush encroachment, we've realized a big impact on job creation. So that again being quite a strong potential sector. With that, I close my presentation and will hand over to my next panelist. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jason, for providing us with important notes on Namibia economy. To sum up your presentations, allow me to share with the participants some key points. First, Mr. Jason showed us about the Namibian primary industries that will lead the economic recovery on 2021 and 2022. And nevertheless, the pandemic has negative impacts to Namibian economy. But in this regard, the government has tried very hard to revive the economy, among others, by attracting private and foreign investors. In this regard, the government has introduced several policies to create sound investment climate, including the improving the ease of doing business in Namibia. And to conclude his presentation, Mr. Jason has mentioned about the investment opportunity in several sectors, such as the energy sector, real estate, and also the agricultural sector. Move on to our third speaker, Mr. Anthony Adewale Olumuyiwa. He's a businessman with a background in mechanical engineering. He has a professional trainings in various fields ranging from management, computer to automobile. And he has extensive professional careers in as an engineer, started in Namdeb Diamond Corporations, Rio Tinto, and Elgin Brown and Hammers. And from 2016 to 2020, he held position as a consultant of senior project or facility manager in Namibia Civil Aviation Authority. Currently, Mr. Anthony is the Chief Executive Officer of Future Image Investment, with main business as a sole distributor and importer of Indonesian food products, as well as other daily needs from other countries. Today, Mr. Anthony will deliver his presentation on experiences importing products from Indonesia. Mr. Anthony, you have 15 minutes to share with us about your experience importing products from Indonesia.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I would like to appreciate all the previous speakers because they already made most of my work more easier. However, little or less things to say, but just to expatiate on what is necessary. Good morning, Namibia, and good afternoon to people in Indonesia. It's a great opportunity that has been given to me to share my experience being a businessman with Indonesia as a country. And now my presentation will basically to share my experience in Indonesia and to share with the Indonesian counterpart what are the opportunities and how the Namibian market, the trend of Namibian market is. So I think you follow. My accent might be a little bit difficult, but I will try as much as possible to be more clearer and then to be more, because my accent is very deep. So I will try to be as slow as possible so that you can hear me clearly. The table of content of my presentation is Indonesian as a country, people, population, and the product and quality, future image investment product from Indonesia, Embassy of Indonesia support and promotion, sales progression on the product that has been imported to Namibia, consumer behavior in Namibia, and market potential in Namibia for food and beverages, and question and answer. So, Indonesia as a country, I don't think I will elaborate much about this, but I will try to brief as much as possible so that I will not take much of my time. The people are friendly and honest and hospitable. The population is estimated to be about 270 million, as all of us can know. The products, there are a range of products, namely daily need products, fabric, cosmetics, engineering, aviation, automobile, construction, appliances, locomotives, products, processed food, furniture, other products. Quality, the quality of products are next to none. Indonesia was colonized by two different countries that doesn't compromise their quality, which is Japan and Netherlands. So they are very consistent in the products, in the quality of the products that they normally say, that you normally get from Indonesia. The consistency of the product can never be compromised or can never be, you can't be doubtful of it. That one I can easily tell you. Another thing that I want us to know, most of the companies are ISO certified, which make it easier for you to be registered to most of the retail outlets, because Namibian is a country that is normally patronize the formal market. The population of people that patronize informal market are very minimal to the one that patronize the formal market. The packaging of products from Indonesia are high quality and eye-catching. So that thing makes the customer to be more attracted to the product. That is one of the good quality that you can even talk of Indonesian products. But one thing I would like to emphasize on before I proceed is that most of the investors that are looking at Namibia as a country, in terms of investment, the first thing that they first of all check is the population of the country, which normally give a very deceiving picture of Namibia as it is. But one thing I can tell any investor that is really, really interested in Namibia, you shouldn't look at Namibia as a country that is standalone, because Namibia is a country that has been a border to most of the landlocked country in South African region, namely, as Dr. Sultan have said, which is Botswana, Zambia, Zimbabwe, DRC, Malawi, and some part of Angola that is not well catered for by Angola itself. So those things, when you look at those populations, it becomes enormous. And Namibia has one of the most efficient ports in this African, which now can accommodate a very large, very, very large vessel, which has a draft of about, let me say, 14 meters, unlike what it was before. They just commissioned, Namibia just commissioned one of the state-of-the-art ports in Africa, whereby the turnaround time and all sorts of things is quite sufficient. I don't think there's any port in Africa that can compete with NAMPORT, which is Namibian Port Authority. I know it might be, but it tends to be challenged if that need to be. So whenever you are looking at Namibia and you are taking your return on investment, you are being deceived by the population of Namibia as a thing, and then you make your decision to be narrowed, and then you try not to invest in Namibia based on the population. But one thing that has been of advantage, Namibia import most of the food items that the people consume here, and the population are very receptive when it comes to knowing things. And one thing that is very, very cardinal about Namibia is that in as much Namibia is a country that is of small population and sparsely populated, they are more friendly, and there is little of civil unrest. When you talk about Namibia, you talk about the stability, the political stability, and the continuity of business. So as my counterpart has said earlier, in terms of the judiciary is an independent, and then the contractual law are well protected. So the issue of being afraid of your investment, you are very sure, like there is nothing like a civil unrest, like unlike any other neighboring countries that could not be boastful of this. So those are the things that make our projector to be more of good to any country that might want to compete to Namibia. And most of these things, in terms of logistics, Namibia is open to any other countries, to the extent that Botswana has has been a landlocked. They have a dry port facilities. Zimbabwe too has a dry port facility in Namibia for you to see and to know that they are well friendly to their neighbors and they are willing to be of help. So those are the things that I want any investor that might be interested in Namibia. So for you to get a bigger picture, you have to put in place the population of DRC, Malawi, Botswana, Zimbabwe, and Zambia. So those populations, you need to factor them in terms of your calculation for you to have a realistic picture of Namibia as a country. So now I proceed to my slide again, the future image investment product from Indonesia. So those are the success story that I can tell and I can share with anybody at any point, which figures are very, very, you can audit it and I can prove it to you, very transparent. So Indo Food is one of our product that we bring from Indonesia. And the story has never been the same, starting from the inception. The flavors that we took in from Indo Foods are beef flavor. As you know, Namibian is one of the countries that have the population of the cattle in Namibia is far more than the people that are residing in Namibia. So people here, they are lovers of beef. So beef is one of our prime product that we import, and chicken flavor as well, and migori fried noodles. So followed by Kapalapi. Kapalapi is one of the manufacturers of daily need product as well. We have the Good Day Cappuccino, which is now being selling properly, and Yesco Sweet coffee and butterscotch flavors. And we have Relaxer, which is triple mint, and the Espresso Sweet, vanilla, mocha, and coffee. The success story, I wouldn't want to say this like now trying to flatter the people that give me the platform for me to address, which is Indonesia Embassy in Windhoek. But one thing that stand out in my success story, that the embassy has been a very, very supportive in terms of promotion, in terms of signing the contract and making sure that I'm happy. And if there's any need, they need to come in to be able to mediate if there is anything which has never been, but they are already there is a thing that I can be boastful of and I'm thankful of, because they are quite very supportive in terms of the success story that I'm sharing with everyone today. So one of the success stories, you can see there's an embassy support and promotion. When we are starting our first consignment, that was 2018, the ambassador then was able to follow us to the Indo Food, whereby the signing and the inauguration of the business partnership with Indo Food was being initiated. So these are the things that you can see. Most of the countries, they don't give all this luxury of opportunity, whereby an ambassador will accompany you. And even after the ambassador left, it has been very supportive. The present ambassador has been very done in different towns in Namibia, which have now put our sales to skyrocket from maybe numerical value of going from arithmetic projection now to geometric, whereby this thing is now skyrocketing in our sales as well, which I'm very, very appreciative of as well. Embassy support. One thing I always like to tell people, saying things is always good, but whenever you are able to see based on the picture or the clips that you see, it will be a buttress point for the things that have been said. I will be able to share some of the clips about the product from Indonesia, about the people, so one of the sales promotion that the embassy supported and financed. So you can have a look at the video clips. You can hold on to that.
Okay, hello guys. So I was just passing by, going to Pick and Pay to grab some noodles. So mine was like, okay, I need to try new flavor today. Then I see them, they're having an advertisement and you have to test all the flavors. So I tested one of it. It was Mr. Flavor. What? This one. I tested this one and it's really nice, and I had to go to Pick and Pay and buy some, and I promise you these noodles are the best. I'm a noodles lover, so I really love them. I advise you to go and buy these noodles. You won't regret. They're the best noodles ever.
The flavor is very nice, tasty, and it's flowing nice and it's light. So I'm a fan of noodles, so definitely I'm going to buy now.
Thank you so much.
Good day, Namibia. My name is Paulus Nakapata, and I like eating Indomie. And first I saw it on Big Brother Naija, where it sponsored Big Brother Naija 2020. Thank you. Indomie is tasting nice. It's very nice. I'm also encouraging you to buy your Indomie at any Pick and Pay store. Checkers.
Nice dish. It's delicious. Chicken flavor. Better can buy one. So delicious.
Hi guys, okay, so we are here at June Mall. I've tried the Indomie noodles for the first time in my life. Actually, I've tried the beef one. I've never tried the rest, but then I've tried the beef and the chicken, but my favorite so far is beef. And guys, I am loving it. It's very nice and the spice is just amazing. So I'll advise everyone to try out the Indomie noodles. If you can, please try the beef first.
Hi guys, I'm Karen, also in June Mall right now. We are here at the Indonesia Embassy. Yes, we came to advertise the Indomie noodles. We've been searching for it for the longest now. I love the fried one. It is so nice when it comes with, mind you, it comes with soy sauce. And you don't get that in any regular instant noodles. So please do try Indomie noodles. You will love it. It is super yummy. Like, it doesn't get sloppy, it doesn't overcook. The texture is top notch.
Hi guys, and please don't forget to try the beef first. I know about Karen, but try this one first.
Very nice. If you're a lover of spicy noodles, the way to go is Indomie.
Hi, we're live from Bentuk. What are we? We're in Bernil. We tasted their noodles, instant noodles. It was really good. It tastes like blue spaghetti, like noodles never tasted this way before for me. So yes, I'm definitely going to give it a thumbs up.
I would say I like it, but I would like a spicy flavor because I like spicy. But the chicken one is chill.
Don't forget to get yourself some noodles.
So coming back again, those are the clips whereby you can say is like seeing is believing when you can say, I can't tell you more. The Indonesian embassy has made it possible for it to be tested by populace, whereby it was a great success and people can attest to the goodness of the product and the consistency of the product, the quality of the product. And then most of the time, like most of the manufacturers, they find it difficult to penetrate because Namibian market is being, let me just say, they are very, very strict in terms of making sure what is being given to the populace need to be well under the accreditation of external quality product like ISO. So most of the manufacturer in Indonesia, they will not have problem in penetrating Namibian market because they are most of them are ISO certified. So those are the things that the good quality that applause to Namibia, to Indonesian manufacturers. So one thing that I want us to see in terms of our projection, right from the inception, you can see when we started in 2018, you can see like the first month we have about 78 boxes. And that was 78 boxes was possible because of the expo that the Indonesian embassy invited us to, whereby we were able to showcase the quality of the product, whereby a lot of people were buying. So there was a slight decline after the first sales. But now, averagely from this graph that I now showed to you, that we sell in a month is minimum of, let me say, 800 to 900 boxes. So, but in which we need to change the strategy because this is basically, we concentrate in Windhoek, which is the central and Walvis Bay. So we are now tend to move to the northern part of Namibia, which is where the population is as well. Because according to some of the strategies that Indofood normally use, you concentrate and you consolidate based on from the center, and then you spread out. And that has been a very good strategy that makes it more easier in penetrating the market as well. That's why the fact that Namibian market customers are very, very selective, but due to the fact that the strategy that makes them that they share with us in terms of penetrating new ground by the director of Indofood, which is Kelvin, that make it known like this is how we penetrate small market and then to get bigger. So those are the strategies that we use that make it a success story here as well. So consumer behavior in Namibia, in which I would like to share with most of the manufacturers that might be watching us on this thing. Consumers are not really adventurous in terms of tasting new things, but notwithstanding, they tend to stick to what the brand they know. So definitely, they are very, very skeptical in getting new things, but immediately you are able to prove your quality and the consistency of your quality, they will stick to it. And I can promise you that immediately they stick to your product, they are very loyal. Namibian customers are very loyal. So that is one thing. It's not easy to penetrate them. So their loyalty is ascertained. Immediately they have the confidence in the product. So that one is a given. The customer appreciating the quality. They appreciate the quality. Namibian consumers, they appreciate quality. They don't compromise quality. And the price play a big role, in which whenever you have other products that are already dominating, they have their footprint, you need to now have a good pricing for you to penetrate. That will encourage to expand other new products. Those are the things and the consumer buys from the market. As I said earlier, supermarket and regular retail outlet patronize in Namibia, and the ratio of formal and informal market patronage range from 85% for formal and 15% to informal, whereby most of the product that has been sold is being patronized in the formal regular market. So, but Namibia is gradually moving to informal, but is not yet publicized it's not yet in high patronage as it is, but in the later future it will be. But most of the things, that is why you require all those ISO certification for you to be registered with all those retail outlets that like Pick and Pay, ShopRite, Checkers, Spar, Woman Bro. Those are the big names, and the Chappies and all, name them. So they are quite the people that you use to cash and carry, Metro. Those are the big names that one need to penetrate before you can say you want to make your product be known by the populace. And then, now market potential in Namibia for food and beverages. There is great potential in processing food and beverage products in Namibia. As I said, most of the processed food are being imported from South Africa, and then the beverages are equally imported. Most of them are equally imported. But one thing that I've discovered about the processed food, if, as I said earlier, you shouldn't concentrate on the population of Namibia for you to make your judgment, because when you are looking at your return on investment on about 2.5 million, and you might be having a very wrong perspective of what Namibia has, the potential that they have. But when you look at this landlocked, and most of them, if not all, are importers as well. So whenever you are able to have like a factory in Namibia, and then because you have a well-efficient port, and then for you to be able to distribute to the network of all these the countries that have been named that are landlocked, which is Zimbabwe, Malawi, Botswana, Zambia, and part of Angola. So those are the things that will give you a good picture of what is on ground in Namibia. Namibia import most of the products from South Africa, as I said. Namibia is surrounded by landlocked countries, which is Botswana, Zambia, and Zimbabwe, and DRC. And the population of these countries are quite bigger. And it will make your projection or your return on investment to look, or net present value, or the thing that you will be money that you want to spend, you'll be able to amortize most of these things properly, and you'll be able to get a better picture of what Namibia is. Namibia has one of the most efficient seaports in Africa, as I said, and is stable politically. We don't have civil unrest as most of the country, and that normally hinder or put most of the manufacturers at risk or into very bad phase. of the economy. Establishment of production plants of food beverages will not serve Namibia alone, but all neighboring countries. So those are the things that one needs to look at and need to have a clear understanding of before you do all your projection about the probability of having any business to do with Namibia itself. So we now have, maybe by the moderator, we might need to have a question and answer section, which is answer any question that is being posed based on my slide. And thank you that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Anthony, for sharing with us your views and the potential trade with Namibia, as well as with the neighboring countries. We also learned a lot from you about your trading experiences and also success story of distributing and importing products from Indonesia, namely the Indofood, the noodles. And one of the key messages from his presentation is Namibian consumers are very loyal. They are not really adventurous, but they also appreciate quality very much, and they are very sensitive to price. And Mr. Anthony, in his presentation, also mentioned about the potential market for food and beverages. Namibia has one of the most efficient seaports in Africa and politically stable, which serve Namibia as the gate to reach other landlocked countries in the region, namely Botswana, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. Distinguished speakers and participants, now let's move on to our discussion sessions. We have received some questions from the participants. We have Rani Devianti, Asi Holomoan, and as for Mr. Raksa Ibrahim. So the first questions from Ibu Rani, I think it will be answered by Mr. Sultan. And the second from Asi Holomoan is dedicated to Mr. Jason. The questions is more about the Namibian policy and also investment climate in Namibia. And finally, Mr. Raksa also asking Mr. Jason about the further investment opportunities in Namibia is regarding the energy infrastructure projects. And we also received questions from YouTuber. There's regarding the SACU trade agreement negotiations. It will be responded by Mr. Sultan. And I think I will give the time for Mr. Sultan to respond to, Mr. Sultan to respond from Rani and also from the YouTube. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Ari. With regard to the first question by Mrs. Rani from Agri Mitra Bandung, yes, of course, we will share you the contact. Here there will be Mr. Cherry, who is the economic officer staff at the Indonesian Embassy. We will shortly share to you in the chat box the email and his contact number. And the second question, which is raised by Sebastian Sterzer, I think I will try to answer the second question. What is the current status about Indonesia SACU trade agreement? So basically, it is still we are still waiting for the SACU countries representative. So the government of Indonesia already submitted since 2017, and they are still up till now the ball is on the SACU side. But for your kind information, that currently Namibia, the SACU also concentrate for the African continental free trade area, so which is started to entry into force since the 1st January this year. So some of the trade negotiation agenda was focused in the trade negotiation for so-called the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Second, apart from Indonesia, for your kind information, India is also want to pursue PTA with SACU. So in other words, it is not only Indonesia, but as well in India is also on queue to to form the preferential trade agreement arrangement. For the first question from Sebastian, whether it is for vegetable and the other food products, basically for general information, in Namibia import significant amount of food products. But for more detail, later Mr. Jason and Ms. Anthony can add it up with regards to the specified products. But in general, many of the products Namibia imported from South Africa, which is the neighbor country of Namibia. I think that's from my side. I think Mr. Jason maybe can add it up for the questions raised in the chat box.
Thank you, Dr. Sultan. The question from Asi, very good question. You are saying that it seems Namibia is more interested in attracting investments rather than boosting trade. Given the current economic crisis, it is probably difficult to attract investments, especially given that Indonesia is also aggressively fundraising for domestic projects. Namibia would need to offer very attractive returns to attract Indonesian investments or highlight other returns. For example, access to African markets. You make a very good point there at the end there. I think that we, and my distinguished panelist next to me was also emphasizing on the access to the African markets. If you look at the enabling environment currently with Africa now having established the largest free trade area on the globe, it provides a country such as Namibia, which is positioned to be a logistic hub with access to African markets and the macroeconomic and political stability to be able to attract investment that would at the same time boost primary production. So if we look at some of the sectors we are talking about, really some of them are primary production sectors that would then enable further trade. So whether that trade would be within the continent, Namibia and the continent, or whether it will also be internationally export orientated, that again probably depends on the demand factors of the particular sector of products that we're looking at. But I don't think that we should separate trade from investment. I think the two are actually intertwined, where the one can boost the other very much. Another thing that I would like you to just look out for in the next month or two, based on your latter part of your question, the UNDP will be releasing Namibia's investor map. So Namibia has joined quite a number of countries and has become one of the first few on the continent to develop an investor map. What this map will be able to do is actually answer part of your question. The map will look at various sectors and it will look at the rate of return in each sector to be able to provide you with what are the sectors that provide the highest returns, what are those that do not, because again, it's a UNDP SDG investor map. Some would provide strong social returns, some would provide strong commercial returns, or both. So I would implore that you look out for that to be published in the next month. I hope I've answered the question for Asi there. Let me go to the question from Raksa, sorry, my apologies. Thank you and praise to all the speakers. If I may ask to elaborate further concerning investment opportunities, how do the Namibian government intend to finance its energy infrastructure projects and how bankable are these projects? Okay, so our biggest utility is called NamPower. I would encourage you to also go on their website. I'm not sure if their strategic plan is there, but I think it's a publicly available document where the major utility has said that a percentage of the rollout of energy projects will be financed from their own balance sheet, and another percentage will have to be financed from independent power producers. So which means that there will be quite a percentage of energy projects that will need to be financed through private investment coming in. Now, in terms of the bankability of these projects, if you look at it over the past 4 years, Namibia has successfully rolled out what we call the REFIT program, which has seen close to, I think, 13 independent power producers providing renewable energy to the utility, but at very small amounts, such as 5 megawatts and above, or between 5 and 20 megawatts. These have shown to be quite bankable and have attracted financiers and investors, both locally and internationally, into 25-year power purchase agreements. So the fact that we've got the scale, the fact that we've got the sun that has got very good radiation, but also the fact that there is what they call now the MSB, which is the modified single buyer model or policy, that now allows you to be able to you are also able to distribute energy to neighboring countries if you are able to secure offtake, and the plant can be in Namibia. So there are various such opportunities as well, which are a key driver for Namibia to become a net energy exporter, as we are currently importing most of our energy. I think those were the two questions that were directed to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sultan and Mr. Jason, for your response on the answers. On the questions. And I think there's one questions that missed by Mr. Sultan, but I think Mr. Anthony can respond to with regard to the food import.
Vegetable.
Yeah, food. And also the recent, there's a question from Mailan Ponto. You can also answer.
I think this one. Yes, this question.
Yeah, that question. Namibia market open for some vegetables and fruits.
Sebastian.
Okay, Mr. Anthony,
you
can respond to that.
Yeah, in terms of Namibian market open for vegetables and fruits from Indonesia, Namibia is a very open market, and then in terms of competitiveness, one need to weigh into that before we now say we double into it in terms of the duty. But as the case is, in terms of vegetables and fruit from Indonesia, I think is a viable project, as I can say. But the thing there is that most of the thing that has created challenges in importing from Indonesia now is the freight charges that is now skyrocketing. So for somebody to compete with South African manufacturers is a bit of a challenge. So that is why I said whenever you have anything to do with Namibia, for you to be able to be more competitive to the other existing manufacturer or supplier to Namibia, you need to have a plant in Namibia that will be able to make the level ground, the playground to be more level, not undulating as it is. Because when you are talking about the importation and the freight charges, those are one of the factors that make the pricing to be more on competitive to the South Africa. So in terms of the fruit and vegetables, it's still very, very viable, as I can say. I hope that I answered all the questions there.
And also we have these questions from Mailan Ponto. Second question for Mr. Anthony: what are the challenges faced by your country?
Due to import and export relation.
In addition to the freight charges that you have been mentioned earlier.
But as the case is, there is no any big challenge in terms of import and export from Namibia. And that's one thing I can tell you. Because as I said earlier, for people to know, like Indomie, people has never seen Indomie in Namibia. And then the persistency and the support that Indo-Food gave and the Indonesian embassy, which are ready, they are very visible and they make sure they give the necessary support. So most of these challenges have come with their opportunities as well. if I may say that, because whenever you are looking at the challenges and then you want to base your factor on that, I don't see challenges in any business. I just see opportunities, because to every challenges that you encounter, there is always an opportunity. So those are the things that I can say in terms of this. So talking about the product, the consistency, and then you have to be tolerant for you to be able to get the fruit of your investment. In Namibia, most especially in SADC region, is not where the population compared to Indonesia, where you have 270,000 population, whereby when you bring any product here, even 2% of that population takes in, it's very, very significant. So, and then some other big population like Nigeria and South Africa. But when you talk about this population, people need to be convinced beyond reasonable doubt that the quality of this and Indonesian product have the good quality and consistency on their quality. Is a sellable approach, and their packaging, the packaging of Indonesian products are eye-catching and very attractive to the customer as well. So most of the challenges has already been overcome, and I don't envisage any challenge of any such that will not be able to tackle. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anthony, for sharing with us your positivity, your opportunity, your views on opportunity of trade between two countries. And there are questions for Mr. Jason. Mr. Jason, there are two questions from Meilan Ponto asking about the impact of COVID-19 to the GDP and industry growth, and also another question from Asi Halomuan regarding the housing development. Is there any issues in terms of land acquisition? Thank you, Mr. I think you can start.
Thank you. Let me answer Meilan's question. Thank you. Very good questions in terms of the projections that were done by Bank of Namibia there. 2.7 in 2021 and 3.2 in 2022. Of course, COVID has got a impact, and COVID is quite a big risk factor for realizing those projections. I think those projections are really based on the growth in the primary sector. What do I mean by that? I mean that in the primary sector, we saw quite an extensive or quite a significant contraction in some of those sectors last year. But due to Namibia's opening up again and due to those sectors reviving themselves again, we can see quite a strong growth around the livestock. We export a lot of beef. Around crop and horticulture, and also around fisheries. So there was a significant lag or stop within the fishing sector last year, which is now going to be picking up and being revived. Also, if you look at our tourism sector, which justifies that assumption of 2.7 and 3.3, Namibia has got relatively low COVID infection rates. We are a sparsely populated country, and it has provided an opportunity for attracting even more tourism as one of the sectors anyway that would be boosting our growth. So we're seeing more and more currently, more and more tourists coming in as we've started to open our borders. And that justifies that growth. Another key element in the secondary industries that is justifying that projected growth is also in the energy sector. So as I've said, there will be plans to roll out a number of energy sector projects that have already got financing secured by the major utility, and that would also contribute there. The recovery also in diamond prices is a contributing factor. So COVID-19 does have an impact, but I think there's been some mitigation in as far as the past few months are concerned. That was the first question there. I think the next question from Asi. Housing development opportunity is interesting as Indonesia has strong experience in this area. Is there issues in terms of land acquisition for the housing? I don't know if you are referring to land acquisition for an individual or do you mean for investors?
Housing estate. For housing estate that you made mention of.
for housing. Yes. Okay. Let me maybe answer it this way to say that yes, it's the experience from Indonesia is also very much welcome. As I've mentioned, that affordable housing is quite an issue. A number of years ago, the World Bank came and, or the IMF, sorry, they came and they saw that our property prices were overvalued by about 20%. If you see that Namibia has got, in Africa, quite an expensive residential property price. And therefore, you've seen that a lot of productive citizens are locked out of the property market and tend to rent. Apart from that is also another problem with the informal settlements. So we would really be open to ideas from countries that have been successful. The Economic Association of Namibia will in 2 months, in conjunction with the Ministry of Urban and Land, be hosting a housing symposium where we would like to also invite those that can provide case studies. Acquisition of land for housing has, I think, not been the primary concern. The primary concern was to be able to service virgin land. So we've got large tracts of virgin land that are not serviced because of the cost of the bulk infrastructure required to service that land. So again, I mean, it's an area requiring investment. It is also an area requiring further expertise. So I agree with you there, Asi. I hope I've answered the question.
Can I comment?
Yes, Mr. Anthony, you can add some.
Can I add some things in terms of the land acquisition in Namibia? Is not a challenge because we have a lot of as land that is being made, but there is not yet serviced, as my counterpart has emphasized. But one thing is that most of the municipality or town council have gone into partnership with a private individual that want to come in, whereby you service the land and you have an agreement with those municipality or town council. And then in terms of this, there must be a percentage that will be accorded to this municipality or town council. But the major challenge is servicing of those land and laying out of these infrastructures that need to be key, because I've been in Indonesia, and in terms of your housing and all sorts of things is something that one can really emulate in terms of this. But in the issue of land, I don't think is a challenge in Namibia. So it's just for you to avail yourself in terms of making sure that you service the land and selling of the property, is because most of the people that are working in a government employee and some private individuals. So those people are able to afford if the houses are affordable. With mass housing that is in Indonesia, I think it will be a great opportunity for Indonesian business counterpart to come to Namibia to come and check the opportunities that are here.
Thank you, Mr. Anthony, Mr. Jason. Now we also have some participants who has raised their hands. First, we have Ibu Rani and also Mr. Ginanjar. Ibu Rani, you can ask your questions live, please. Ibu Rani. Ibu Rani. Okay, I see there's only one raised question from Ibu Rani, but I see from the question and answer box, there's also questions directed to Mr. Sultan regarding the FTA. Mr. Sultan, if you can respond to that questions.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Ari. Yeah, for the question by Mr. Ginanjar, has the estimated increase in trade volume? Okay. For this model, I use the partial equilibrium model, which is particularly the SMART model, the software for market access. Yeah, there's a SMART model which is developed by the World Integrated Trade Solution. It is a partial equilibrium analysis. So I do use the past trade data to assess the impact of the potential FTA between Indonesia and Namibia by removing all tariff barriers to 0%. The impact is not only in terms of change in export or import, trade creation or trade diversion, but also actually there are more than that, but I don't elaborate in the PowerPoint. For example, in terms of tariff reduction, by how much amount, as well, for example, the consumer surplus that gain from the trade simulation. And for the next question, what make us optimistic? First of all, to our point of view, Namibia is a stable country politically compared, let's say, to many other countries in Africa, to be honest. Second, despite we know that the GDP contracted last year, it is predicted that this year and years to come, it will try to recover. And we see that there are more to explore for business opportunities. Also, for your kind information, that many people maybe think that the export or the trade from Indonesia to Namibia, they argue it is all through South Africa. It is not actually like that. Many of the Indonesian products that are exported from Indonesia to Namibia, they go directly to the port of Namibia, which is called, if you look in the Google, there is a port called Walvis Bay Port. So the Indonesian products, including the Indonesian food product, for example, which is by Mr. Antony, which import the food products, the container, the cargo, it is sent directly from Indonesia to Namibia, not through South Africa. Many people think that all I would say Indonesian products that go to Namibia, it is through South Africa. It is not. Basically, there are many products that go directly to Namibia. Also, we met, for example, with the businessman, the furniture import. There is a shop for furnitures in Namibia, which is located in Walvis Bay. We met with the owners, and they said that they import directly as well from ports, for example, in Semarang, in Jakarta, directly to Namibia without transit via South Africa ports. I hope it may answer the question from Ginanjar. And also the question raised by Mrs. Rani, just to add it up a bit. Yes, we already sent you the contact detail. Mr. Cherry, who in charge for economic officer at the KBRI Windhoek. So later we can discuss. You can kindly contact him and to discuss further how to explore business here, including that you mentioned before for the business matching with the Namibian relevant counterparts here. I hope I can answer the question to Mrs. Rani. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sultan. And there's questions from Elina Madila regarding perhaps someone is interested in costume, cosmetics, and beauty. I think, Mr. Anthony, you can respond to this. I'm not sure is it a questions or statement, but
I think it's a Namibian. That one is a Namibian.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
yes. Okay. You want to pass that question?
Yes, please.
Yeah, no problem. The one, there is a lot of cosmetics and they're very, very good natural costumes and beauty thing that is not having all these additives that are having an adverse effect. And a lot of manufacturers are in Indonesia, whereby if you talk to the embassy, they can definitely give you their contact. So this one, is in terms of beauty and cosmetic and costumes. Indonesia has a wide range of this product, which of high quality, and this one are from natural. It's not like now these chemical based mainly, so which are really very, very, very good. I can attest to that as well. So I hope that if you need any contact, you can contact Mr. Seria, that's his number and his telephone, and he will be able to give you the necessary contact company that you might be dealing with.
Thank you, Mr. Anthony, for responding to the question from Elena. And I think the time is almost up, almost finished. And before I conclude the session and discussions, I would like to thank for all the distinguished speakers. Thank you for sharing the knowledge, sharing the expertise with us. And thank you for all the participants who is joining us today. And brief information from the speakers have told us about both countries, Indonesia and Namibia, that has strong and cordial relations, which is a great foundations to build cooperations. To that end, both countries need to work together to find creative ways to do the business. The session also mentioned about challenges that could be problematic for the trade relations, but as Mr. Anthony has mentioned earlier, that there is no challenges, there is no problem, but there's only opportunities lies ahead of the countries. And it is also highlighted the importance of increasing people-to-people contact through socio-cultural cooperations. Thank you very much for all your attentions, your questions, and thank you very much to speakers for coming and joining with us today. Stay safe and healthy and have a wonderful day. Over to you, Ibu Lydia. Ibu Lydia.
Thank you, Pak Ari. Thanks for chairing the event. From me, there's nothing much additional. Just want to thank everyone and good luck with strengthening the bilateral between Namibia and Indonesia. And thank you for sharing the insight, both in terms of economic and business opportunities. So that's all from me. Feel free to leave the room. Before I close the room, I'm going to share future events for Forum Kajian Pembangunan. This is a development studies group in Indonesia that's been going on since 2010. Thanks again, everyone. Sampai jumpa. Thank you, Ambassador, for your time.